Welcome to the Develop Yourself podcast, where we teach you everything you need to land your first job as a software developer by developing yourself, developing your skills, your habits, your network, and more. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Hayslip, and today we're talking with our very own career services coach for Parsity, our online code school, Megan Diaz. She has a wealth of knowledge for bootcamp grads around job searching. She's been helping us for a few years now with every single one of our grads, helping them find their first gig. We're going to talk through her story of actually getting laid off from a W-2 position and then now really turning career coaching into a gig of its own for her. And then we're going to dive in. Of course, the things you're all going to want to listen to are her strategies for job searching. What does it look like right now for bootcamp grads? Is it really that grim? All these thoughts. These are things that you should zoom in on if you are in this position where you are job searching, or you will be soon. You definitely want to listen to this episode. All right, Megan, thanks so much for being on the podcast. So I probably gave some of this context in the intro that I did for, which I will record later. That's how I normally do the podcast. But for context, you are the career coach for Parsity, which, as we were just going over just now, you're not a full-time employee of Parsity. In fact, you're a contractor, and you're doing this. I mean, your brand, and you can explain this better than I can. Like, career coaching is like your thing. So would love to hear sort of maybe like a brief history of like where you've been, and how you got to like this weird niche of helping bootcamp grads find jobs. Would love to dive into like what you're working on. And then also want to dive into like all your expertise around, I'm sure you've got so many stories and best practices for how bootcamp grads can find a job. So give us the background. I want to catch back up to the conversation we were just having when we weren't recording.
Yes. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. So I have a background in HR, recruitment, talent acquisition, and career coaching. And I previously worked for a software engineering college in San Francisco. So I managed the student experience there, and I helped all of the students get jobs in big tech in Silicon Valley. So front end, back end, full stack engineers. And then I realized that the overarching theme in my background is just helping people. I also have a master's in education and leadership. So working with college students, I've always been super passionate about working with students, helping them get that first internship or that first job. And so that kind of led me to where I am today. So I am a professional career coach. I am not certified. I do not believe you need to be certified to be successful. And I kind of started not only at the college that I just referenced, but also through Upwork. So I started on Upwork. I actually had a lot of students that I previously helped write me some testimonials to get my profile legit. Those are legit reviews.
Love it.
And so then Upwork is actually how I found Parsity and how I'm here today.
Yeah.
And now I am in this interesting world where I am currently consulting for 5 different companies as a career coach. So I have a lot of expertise in software engineering boot camps, as well as just helping people with their career and pivot their career. I actually haven't been working with as many laid off people as I was expecting, but I am currently working for another company that's helping people who were laid off from Meta and Amazon. And then Upwork, I get, you name the field, I have done it. And then I also just specialize in software engineers.
Crazy. Okay, there's so many trails I want to dive into. I know this is a podcast for people who are becoming software engineers, but I kind of want to dive on the personal side into like your career, right? And in some ways, like entrepreneurship, like that's what you're talking about here. So if you don't mind me going into this, you told me that you in a big Meta situation were laid off recently and have started like ramping up your career coaching work. So what happened, and like how did you? Because I think in my mind, I hope everyone would respond to a layoff in the way that you did. But tell me a little bit about that story. When did you get laid off, and like how did you respond?
Yeah. And something to be a great career coach is being vulnerable and letting people also, that's how people tell you their story too. So I'm in an interesting phase of my own career right now. So I was laid off from my full-time job. I worked in talent acquisition, and I was laid off from there in March. And since then, as mentioned, so I've been with Parsity for a few years now. It's been November of 2021. So I've always done Parsity. But essentially outside of that, what I did was I was like, you know what am I passionate about? What do I enjoy doing? And I'm going to pursue those opportunities. And so I kind of started to continue to do more Upwork clients. And then from there, I got more referrals. And then I interviewed for a few other jobs that one I found through Upwork. But as I mentioned, I'm helping people get jobs that were laid off from Meta, as well as Amazon, and then career pivoters, software engineers. And I've kind of, what's great about all of that is I can do all of these things and get so much experience and work for so many different organizations and learn so much. So I've kind of figured out in the entrepreneurship world, ironically, so many people have asked me, do you want to start your own company? Why don't you have your own business? And I don't. I absolutely don't. Because in that world, I have to go find my own clients or my own students, my own people. And I'm not passionate about sales. I'm not passionate about figuring out how to do, all of the things. I want people to come to me, which is what I'm getting right now from all of the companies that I work for. But with that said, I have been on the side maybe looking for another full-time job. And that has definitely given me great insight into how to help coach people today into what that world looks like. I'm actually writing a blog post right now on how the candidate experience is broken. And I truly do believe that there's so much going on in today's world that I think it has helped me become a better career coach, because if I'm trying to do my own job search while helping other people do their job search, it really keeps me up to date in today's current trends and technologies.
Well, you'll need to give us your blog link so we can put that in the show notes for one. But yeah, I mean, it's funny, the comment you made about, hey, I'm actually also kind of job searching, is funny because maybe people, and I think it's sort of brave of you to say it like that. But I think you're right. Like, and this isn't just an excuse that like you being in a similar situation or like one step ahead in some ways is a massive advantage. Like, I think few people know that I worked as a software engineer for like a year before I started my first boot camp, which means I was like the least experienced engineer. In fact, a few weeks ago, we had my like very first boss on as a guest of the episode. Which was funny because I always felt like he was going to fire me, even though like he said he wasn't, because I was like the worst engineer. I'm not saying like you're the worst job searcher. There's no comparison there, but it's like the experience that you're having now, like being one step ahead of where everyone else is in this time period is super important, because I think a lot of people have like expertise gap where it's like, hey, it's been so long since a lot of career coaches have actually job searched that like it changes every few years, I feel like. And then like seeing that you are able to, because we've heard a lot about this, right? Talent management folks or recruiters like getting laid off is crazy common right now. And I think I'd kind of push back on you. I think like what you're doing is entrepreneurship. You're just like doing it well. Because in an ideal business, like you would have your clients come to you, right? Like you would get like the results would speak for themselves. You wouldn't need to spend money on marketing. Like even like Parsity, we don't spend any money on marketing because everything comes through the like the organic channels. So I freaking love that. So okay, if you don't mind me asking some like super personal questions,
Sure.
So like, are you like, you're doing work for these like 5 different organizations. Like how much time does it take you a week, like for each organization? Do you see yourself like just career coaching for forever and not having to go back to like having a W-2 job? I mean, how are you thinking about those things?
I've definitely thought a lot about it. And I think the main difference between having these 5 jobs and a full-time job is it's inconsistent. So yeah, there's some consistency. I definitely would say I still work 40 hours a week. I probably work 8 hours a day or more. But it's a little bit more complex because I have different email addresses, different calendars. I have to be literally ultra organized. And I think, some weeks I may financially be amazing and other weeks it's different just because of where things are at in certain organizations, or some things are ad hoc. Like one of the companies I work for, I do master classes for them. So that's not necessarily every week. So I think there's a lot of variables that make it inconsistent. And also from a financial standpoint, I think that could be a bit challenging at times.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, this isn't that podcast, but Man, I would love for you to like keep going and grow this thing, and then bring on other career coaches to help you take on the load. But maybe that's not your gig. All right, I want to dive into like some of your secret sauce, because obviously you've got more experience than most people I've ever met with this niche, and I think our audience, like I said, is folks who are currently learning to code, hoping to get a job as a software engineer, or they are at their first job, so they're always kind of like thinking about like what's the next step. Would love to hear like, how have you seen the job search change for bootcamp grads recently? Because I would say from my perspective, and I know like we're both at Parsity and we should be sharing all this knowledge quite a bit, but there was a season probably like in 2021 where I told the students, I've never seen a hotter job market for software engineers. Like, it's just never been like this, right? And then it seems like that all like shifted, where for the first time, like in my like career as a software engineer, I'm like seeing software engineers look for work. So is it really that bad right now for bootcamp grads? And if so, like what are some of like the best methods that you've seen that have actually worked during this season of, whatever you want to call it, the market downturn for tech or whatever?
Yeah, I know that there's been a lot of tech layoffs recently. With that said, the unemployment rate in the US is still pretty low. It's like at 3.4%. So there are jobs out there. I think that a few things. I think one, people need to be very strategic in their job search. Just applying for anything and everything with a non-customized resume is just not helpful. I also think that in today's world, the best way to get a job is through your network. I was on a call recently with a bunch of career coaches, and they actually provided the stat that said 80% of jobs are landed through your network, through someone you know. So I do still think that LinkedIn is the number one platform to find people, not to reach out to people, but to find people. Fun fact, companies pay about $150K a year to get LinkedIn Enterprise. So companies are investing in this. And I would say that, they're using Recruiter Lite, they're using LinkedIn, all of the bells and whistles that LinkedIn provides at a very expensive cost. And so what I would recommend is, utilizing LinkedIn to look for a job. Never apply on Easy Apply, because it doesn't consist of all of your information that would go to the ATS, the applicant tracking system. Utilize LinkedIn to find a role, then go to the actual website to apply for the role, make sure it's still posted. And then from there, you would use a website called hunter.io, or Contact Out, and find the hiring manager or recruiter's email, and then email them, attach your resume. You need to apply first, because if you email them and say you're interested, they're just going to tell you to apply. So apply first and then email them. But if you are applying to a larger company where you have a referral, someone who can get you in via referral, which, by the way, is the best way to go in today's market. What you need to do is reach out to your referral and ask them for the referral link to apply for the role. Or if they refer you internally, if you apply on the website and then go talk to your referral friend, unfortunately, your application is actually toast. So that's not the way to go. You always, if you have a referral, go to them directly first.
Yeah.
In today's market too, I think, to answer your original question about a shift in the market, is we are now seeing a trend that you don't need to have a bachelor's degree to get a job. So I think that is very helpful for bootcamp grads. I know a lot of bootcamp grads are pivoting their career, and they probably do have a degree from another school. But I would say that, in today's market, we're shifting away from needing to have a bachelor's degree to get that first job.
Yeah, I love that. Obviously our philosophy here aligns on like the job search itself, but it's funny, we actually, not to like plug more episodes, but on episode number 35, we had an interview with Justin Welch. He's like always gets like top 3 or 5 like LinkedIn influencer awards, and he writes all about like basically building. It's so meta. He has a LinkedIn profile all about building a giant LinkedIn profile, which is fantastic. But in that conversation, we talked about like, hey, how can you, even as a bootcamp student, like how can you begin to sow seeds of building an audience on LinkedIn. Not that you have to become this great content guru, but I think you're right. Like those connections on LinkedIn are incredible for finding a job. And in fact, like one of the guys that I'm friends with, he runs an organization called SaaS Bros, which ridiculous, they're a funny name, but him and his brother, they help people land their first like sales job with SaaS companies. And he would say, and he's grown this massive LinkedIn audience, and he'll say like if he posts something and someone that he's trying to like close a deal with likes the post, and then if he goes and does outreach to that person, almost every time he can land a meeting because they just engaged with some of his content. So like how amazing could this be for bootcamp students? Like if they can start to build a network, even if they don't know the people, they can start to create content, get people to engage with their content. That creates almost like this little mini connection. And I know that sounds ridiculous, like that you would have to do all that, but I think that's just the nature of like, if it's your first job and you've got no experience, like you've got to be willing to do some of the crazy outside the box stuff. One more like quick note about this. I remember, I don't know why I say I remember, recently there was a Parsity grad who was like posting on LinkedIn, and to be honest, his like content wasn't great content, but one of the things he talked about was trying to start a meetup group. And I was like, look, I did this a long time ago. When we first started my first boot camp in Durham, all I did is went to Meetup. I created like a meetup group, and then people just started joining the meetup group. And slowly I started getting speakers. The first event, I think, by the way, was like, hey, come to this brewery in downtown Durham. First beer is on me. I think it cost me like $150 out of my pocket to like buy everyone beers. But in that group, there were some of like the most prolific, like senior level engineers that I don't know why, to be honest, they showed up, but they did. And then now recently I've seen him start to build out this meetup group. And it's like, did that take any more effort for him to build this out than it did to like apply for 100 jobs a week? No, but it's way more effective. You know, that kind of stuff is huge.
Yeah, I do.
So anyway,
I do have a comment on that too, now that you mentioned that. So sometimes when I meet with students, they are a bit hesitant to put their personal brand out there, to create original content. And I always tell them, be active on the platform. If you go to the activity section on LinkedIn, recruiters look to see if you're active. And yes, you can be active in a lurker, but that's just not helpful. You know, like it's like Instagram, right? You can never like anything, but know someone's entire life. And so I always tell students, be active on LinkedIn, but comment in some way that's valuable, not like, great job. Like that's really not that helpful, you know? So it's really important to continue the conversation, comment some valuable insight. But I do highly recommend creating your own content, or if you read an article, these are the takeaways. And then I know, Aaron, you've had in your podcast too, like post about your learnings, like what have you been learning? And I do think that I'll also just tell you some examples of how I've actually gotten a lot of people to contact me on LinkedIn because I'm active, I post. So there's a couple of things. One, someone reached out to me to build me a website for free. I currently have someone who is building me a website. Yes, I'm paying for like the domain name and that kind of thing, but essentially that person reached out to me. The article, I've been published in 16 articles. All of the articles that I was published in came through someone from LinkedIn. The podcast that I'm going to be in a few days came through someone from LinkedIn. So if you are active on the platform and utilizing it to be valuable, you can get so many opportunities, not only the things that I mentioned, but a job so I think get over the fear and just go for it and post original content.
Yeah, totally. No, I love that. And I will say, like, even during this season where it seems like the market's more difficult, like how I say this, the person who has the highest starting salary of any grad I've ever had in a boot camp, like got their job in the last like several weeks. So like, it's still like, it's a lot of work. I mean, this person I'm thinking of like really worked outside the box and was slow and methodical, but consistent to do the right things. And I really still believe that, like, if you don't quit, it's inevitable, because every like activity that you do, everything that you pursue, like every application you fill out, every person you reach out to, every post you post, like it's another opportunity for data. Like either either it flops and it gives you results that like this wasn't a good idea, or like it works and then you double down on it. And it's just a process of like you slowly eliminate what's not working and you double down on the stuff that is, and then you just try and get consistent, like as consistent as possible. And then I think it's inevitable. Like if you actually have the skills, which is like, the first part of all this, but if you have the skills, I think it's inevitable. So yeah, I love that. You're building opportunities. I think others can as well. And then one more thought on this like LinkedIn thread I want to throw out is, as you were saying this, like create your own content. I do want to say that like, you don't have to be excellent at creating LinkedIn content, but a little bit of investment in like how to create good LinkedIn content goes a long way. Like I think, I can plug this in the show notes too, but Justin Welsh, and we talked about this in this episode, he has a LinkedIn course. I think it's like either $50 or $150, which, isn't nothing whenever you're job searching and underemployed. So I get that. But his course, I took it, and it's like just learning, taking 2 or 3 things away from his course and applying those was massive. Like my LinkedIn audience grew, I think over the last like year or two by like 6,000 or something like that, people like followers, just because I literally took his course and like just did what he said, And even if I put in like 1/5 of the effort that I did into it, like, and I've stopped, by the way, doing anything on LinkedIn, only because I'm not like job searching or really, I realized that, anyways, it's a tangent, but anyway, so I think going a little bit into that will go a long way. So just doubling down on what you said there. What have you seen, Megan, recently that's been like, what are like 1 or 2 things that are like the hardest? Like what's the biggest issue that a bootcamp grad has? Like how do they get in their own way? Like what are the mistakes that they're making that are making this job search really hard for them?
I think it's finding the right opportunities where they feel confident. I think a lot of time, I've worked with a lot of software engineers, as I mentioned, imposter syndrome is real, pivoting your career. I think it's exhausting applying to jobs. I think another thing is I don't really have a network in this field because I'm pivoting. So if we're trying to say build up your network. So that's when I would recommend, okay, have you looked at Slack groups, Discord groups, those type of things, meetups in your area, conferences, that type of thing. So I think the biggest thing is just figuring out how to find roles that you feel confident in, which goes back to your application materials, right? Like how confident do you feel submitting this? But then from there, being strategic in your search so that you don't get burned out. Because if you get burned out, that's when imposter syndrome hits. And so I think even, taking a step back and figuring out, okay, what am I doing for myself? I'm not just going to apply to 30 jobs a day and then I'm burnt out and exhausted. So I think increasing the network strategically, so finding those opportunities that will lead you to the networking component that will lead you to hopefully warm introductions and referrals.
Yeah, no, I think it's key. And I don't mean to like keep like jumping on top of the things you're saying, but I feel like you're saying such a good stuff. I like want to double down and add even more color to it. That I think one thing that you said was something I've noticed a lot, which is like confidence. Like people, they don't feel like they have the authority or they're not legitimate enough to like actually make the moves. And I think that's like probably the most valuable asset that a job searcher has, is not like your network or your connections or even like your methodologies, but it's like your own mindset, right? Like your own confidence to actually take these steps. And I go back to, we talk about some of this in Dev 30, which is like our beginner JavaScript course. And we have like a 30-day like mindset podcast. And one of the things we talk about is James Clear. He writes this book called Atomic Habits.
I have it right here.
I don't know if, all right. Yeah, there we go. I don't know what everyone thinks about it, but I love it. And one of the things he talks about is this idea of identity. And he gives this example, which this example sounds ridiculous, but so I don't know if it's true, but of this guy who like wants to start going to the gym, but he's like out of shape and he doesn't go to the gym, and that's not his identity. He doesn't identify as like someone who goes to the gym. So he starts off by just literally driving to the gym every day and like not even going inside and like leaving, or I'm probably butchering the story, but eventually, like he adopts the identity as like, I am someone who goes to the gym. And therefore, like then he started working out, and eventually like it became his identity. And every time that he committed the habit, like he stuck with his commitment, James Clear talks about, is it was a vote for this new identity as I'm a person who works out. I think that's true too with like this job search is like your identity that you need to establish is I am a software engineer. Like it doesn't have to be like a senior level. I'm not an expert. I don't know everything, but I am a software engineer just as much as every other one of these people who started off their career. Like that's me. And so then you got to figure out, it's not like making your mind right so that you then do the right things. It's that you do the things so that your mind would change, right? And so for example, it's like, I need to code every day, like to convince myself that I'm a software engineer. You've got to give yourself a break too. Like you don't have to be writing expert level code. I always tell beginner students, like, look, right now you are writing the crappiest code of your life. Like the code that you're writing it's straight crap. Like it's not good at all. It's ugly. Probably won't work for a lot of the times. Like it's just the way it is. But everyone who writes good code at some point had to like dig through the pile of all the bad code to like get there. So like either you're to that point where you're writing good code or you're digging through. Either way, like you're part of that process, like, and you are a software engineer. Like if you join a program like ours or have been through a boot camp, or if you're writing code, it doesn't matter how great it is, like you are a software engineer. So keep going, like cast those votes, get that confidence up, and then you're going to have like the whatever the word is, the bravado to like reach out to someone to say, hey, I saw this role. Like I would love a connection. And then as you said, like, man, people are literally compensated for this. Like if your friend works at a tech company, like they will get thousands of dollars if they refer you and you get hired. Like it's insane. I've worked at companies before where it's like $3,000 to $5,000 just because they like put your name in the little like in the software. So yeah, I love that. I think confidence all the way.
I think I want to add one more thing to that too.
Yeah.
Just going back to the mindset thing. I think, well, also two things. One is I recently listened to your podcast about the abundance mindset. So plug for that. I think people should also listen to that because I thought that was great. I actually sent it to one of my former students that I previously worked with, who I met with recently, who was like, I'm not good enough. I was like, you need to listen to this. And so I sent it to her. But essentially,
I love it. Peter never listens to my episodes, so I never get feedback.
Hopefully we have a good audience for this one. But so going back to the mindset component, I think this is very critical to do up front, because when it comes to rejections, if you're not in the right mindset and you get all of these rejections, like, I mean, just to get a little personal, if I get a rejection today for a job that I applied for, I am not going to be upset at all because I know I'm qualified. I'm just going to be like, you know what? My resume is great. I am qualified. Maybe it was bad timing. Maybe it's not meant to be. Like, that's kind of my mindset. And so I think that when I get a rejection, I'm like, you know what? It's not meant to be. I'm going to find the best opportunity for me. And I did everything in my realm of control to make sure that I stood out as a candidate, and it's their loss. So I think having that mindset up front will really help on the rejection side.
I love that. And in line with that, Tim Ferriss has, I think it's a TED Talk somewhere on fear setting. And he talks through like this process and where to write down like your worst case scenarios and like what you would do. And you just take it as far as you can. And the point is to realize that the worst thing that can happen is not that bad. Like, right, if it takes you however long to get a job, it's not that bad. If this person rejects you, it's not that bad, right? And that was always my mindset, is like, all right, if I reach out to this person and they don't respond to me, in 2 days I'm following up. If they still don't respond, I'm just going to keep going. And because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to think I'm a loser. Like, who cares? Like, if they think I'm a loser, they're not going to hire me. Like, me reaching out to them is not going to like ruin anything anyway. And I think one thing too, like to that point, is the lows and rejections hurt twice as much as the wins. And so we've got to figure out a way, like I think, like in our minds, to like tell ourselves that the wins are as big as they are. Like, so whatever that means. I think I've heard some people, and I should probably do this more honestly, personally, that like when they have a goal and they reach it, they'll have like predetermined like the ways they'll celebrate. And I think we should do that, right? If you've got like, hey, if someone responds to this, I'm going to celebrate by like, I don't know, drinking this beer or the special beer that I bought or something. I don't know. And then I think what's especially important is like, if you get a win, like that's the time whenever you double down, right? Like then you keep going, because it's going to be really hard to be motivated whenever you get a rejection like that day. Like, so literally like in a day, if you get a win, like take the next 30 minutes after that win and like do as much work as you can to like reach out to more people, because you're going to feel like that little boost of like dopamine, like, oh, I'm a boss.
Yeah. And I think a small win too, right? Someone responded to my email.
Yeah.
A cold email, someone responded. Like, I think keeping in mind a small win is any win, right? And not just, oh, I have an interview. That's like a big win in today's market. So I think a small win, celebrating, getting your favorite cup of coffee, you know, whatever it is.
Build that snowball. All right, Megan, I've driven this conversation and I have added 2x to every question that I've asked you. What are some things what are some questions I'm not asking that I should be asking? Or what are some things that you think our audience should know that maybe I wouldn't even know to like talk about?
I think when it comes to applying for jobs, I think it's kind of like this 3-pronged approach. So one is kind of like your application materials, right? So your resume, in today's world, resume, LinkedIn, GitHub for software engineers, obviously, portfolio maybe. So having all of that crystal clear and being confident in it. Recruiters spend 6 to 7 seconds looking at a resume. I'm not kidding. I've been a recruiter. This is true. So I think that being confident in that, making sure that it's customized to a role. So that's one part, right? The application materials. Then the next part is kind of the strategy component. Okay, what kind of company do I want to work for? A big company, a startup? Do I want to work for a certain industry, a nonprofit? Like having kind of like career clarity. Obviously, as software engineers, you know, you can take it a step further. Am I interested in front end, back end, full stack, that kind of thing too? So front end, clear portfolio, right? And then after the strategy, then it's kind of like the interview prep. So technical and non-technical interview prep. And so I think it's helpful to kind of look at it in those 3 prongs, because they're all very different, but you need to be prepping in all aspects for all 3 in order to feel confident in the job search. So I think that that's kind of what I would recommend for, you know, people looking for jobs, and then using your network and being strategic about it and adding connections that are of value, and not being afraid to reach out cold, not being afraid to, you know, ask someone to hop on a call. I always tell people you can learn something from every conversation. And sometimes I go into calls kind of not knowing the direction it's going to go or kind of what to expect, but always take the call and you're going to learn something from everything.
Yeah. I love it. And I'm assuming here that you've got a backlog, but are there ways that, because we've got plenty of people that are listening to this podcast that haven't gone through Parsity. They've gone through other boot camps and they won't automatically get access to your coaching when they graduate. Are there ways that they can hire you directly to help them out?
Yeah, probably through my Upwork. So I have an Upwork profile. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So reaching out on LinkedIn or reaching out on Upwork, I think is a great way to go.
Awesome. We're going to put all of that in the show notes so that people can reach out to you if they need help. Any other shout outs before we close? And final thoughts, parting words, things you want to plug?
I think those links cover it. I think in today's market, I think don't be afraid to be bold. Don't be afraid to kind of go against the grain, be unique, find your own strategy. Definitely use LinkedIn. And I think that the mindset and maybe affirmations or, you know, anything else is really going to help lead to success from the technical side of things as far as your application materials, interview prep, all of that, but also being in the right mindset and then being yourself.
Awesome. Well, love it. Thanks for the time, Megan.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that does it for today's episode of the Develop Yourself podcast. Please check out Megan's links in the show notes. If you want to learn more about our online code school in which you will work with Megan, that's who our career coach is, then go to parsity.io, parsity.io. If you want to learn more about becoming a software engineer and you've never coded before, check out our Dev 30 program. That is DEV30.xyz. Again, this is our 30-day cohort-based JavaScript program in which we do go over all these things. We work on your mindset with a daily 2-minute podcast. We help you build your network by teaching you how to post on LinkedIn throughout the program. We work on your skills. We're going to learn the fundamentals of JavaScript in community. And we, of course, work on your habits by walking through some different practical methods that will get you focusing longer and having more time in your schedule for actually learning how to code. See y'all next time.